My name is Alyssa and welcome to my channel ReFURBi. Today I'm going to be doing a video on how to skin and wash your Furby Boom. And so I've got this one right here that I'm going to be doing this video on. And the Furby's not dirty, but I'm just doing this kind of to show you how it's done. And so I'm going to be doing the entire process. And so I hope you can follow along, and I hope this video will help you with cleaning your own Furby Booms. Let's get started.
The first step to disassembly is going to be to flip the Furby over and undo these two screws that are holding the battery lid on. Once you have the lid off, you're going to see 8 screws surrounding the battery compartment. Remove all of these screws. These screws are holding a plastic plate that goes around the battery compartment. The fur is tucked underneath this plate, and that's what's holding it in place. Now you can pop this plate right off, and the fur is going to start being able to peel up easily. Before you start pulling the fur back, you'll need to locate this white ribbon near the tail. This ribbon is pulled when the Furby is on and causes the tail to move up and down. Just unhook it from the plastic notch it's around. Now you can start loosening up the fur, but be careful and don't start just trying to rip it off because there's a cable here that you're going to need to unhook. This red cable has 2 white plastic pieces that clip and can join the 2 halves of the wire together. Gently tug the plastic pieces where they connect to pull them apart. The next step is to locate these 2 white pouches, one in the front and one in the back. The one in the back does not have any wires in it, just stuffing, so you can either leave this on or remove it and reattach it later. I will be removing it so that it doesn't fill with water in the bath, and then I'm going to sew it back on later. Pull it out and find the stitches where it is attached to the fur. Try to cut just the stitches so that it unravels and releases from the fur easily. If you decide to take this part off, once you're done, just set it off to the side. Now locate the pouch that's in the front. This one does have wires in it, so you absolutely need to remove this one. This one you're going to remove pretty much the same way, only it doesn't have obvious stitches like the other one did, so you are going to have to snip a little bit of the fabric. This one is also attached in 3 different places, so you could start out with one side and then get the other side, and then it's also sewn all the way across the bottom, so you are going to have to cut all the way across that pouch. Now you can start to pull back the fur. You're going to want to pull it all the way back to where you can see the underside of the faceplate. On the bottom right of the faceplate, there's going to be a clasp, and then there's also going to be a screw on the left side. You're going to start by undoing both of these. The plastic of these clasps is going to want to bend, but just try not to break them. While you're going and undoing clasps, you can also go ahead and remove the stitches from the ears. That way you can loosen the ears up from the fur. This is also stitched in, so I'm just going to take my scissors and undo the stitches. I was going to remove the ears next, but I couldn't really get to those stitches that are deeper in there, so I'm going to need to take the faceplate off first. So I'm going to start removing all of these clasps all the way around. All I'm doing is taking my screwdriver and going underneath these clasps and then pushing upwards to try to release them. It can take a little bit to do this carefully, but you should be able to remove these all safely without breaking any of them. Now that I've removed more of these clasps, I can finally start reaching these ears again. Now I can get into those stitches that I couldn't really reach earlier. It's going to be harder to reach these last few clasps if I don't take these ears off first. The ears are going to bend a little bit to take them out of here, but it shouldn't damage them in any way. They're pretty tough. Now you're going to reveal two remaining clasps at the top of the head. Remove them just as you did with the rest of them. And that is how you remove the fur from the body. So now I'm just going to take this fur, and I like to have the outer layer on the outside, so I'm just going to flip it back around so that I can see the outside fur. Once it's been flipped around so that it's facing the right way, it's going to be ready for the wash. So now I'm going to start getting the water going, and I'm just going to be cleaning this Furby in my sink. I'm heating up the water, but I'm not going to make it too hot. I usually like to have it a little on the warmer side, but not too hot, because if you do water that's too hot, you could risk the colors bleeding off of the fur, and you don't want that. Now I just use laundry detergent with fabric softener, and I just pour a little bit of that into a cup, and then I put it into the bath water. I like to do a half cap. You probably don't need that much, but I really like the scent of this, and so the more I use, the more that scent stays on the Furby. If you have a Furby that smells bad, I recommend using a little bit more and using one that's got a really nice scent to it. To wash the Furby, I make sure I fully submerge it, and then I start scrubbing it with my hands. Make sure you get the inside and the outside really clean. For Furbies that are a lot dirtier than this one was, I actually will soak it a little bit first before I even start scrubbing it. I usually will scrub the Furbies anywhere between 5 to 10 minutes, maybe a little longer depending on just how dirty that Furby is. Because this one wasn't that dirty, I'm really not going to scrub it for that long. When I'm done, I'm going to drain the bath water and then just run it under some warm water to get all that soap out. Once I make sure it's free of any soap, I start to squeeze it out to get as much excess water as I can off of it. The next step is going to be to get a towel and then just start rubbing it and getting that excess water off. I found that with Furby Booms, they're a lot easier to dry than the 1998 or Furby Babies. These guys don't have as thick of fur that retains the water more, so just with a towel I can pretty much completely dry this Furby up. So I really don't have to do anything extra like leave it out to dry or use a blow dryer. Once the Furby skin is dry, the next step is going to be sewing these little pouches back on. To start this, you'll need to flip the Furby inside out. So the pouch in the front is going to fit right across like this, so you're going to want to sew it back down into that spot. You can use any color of thread that you want because you're not going to be seeing it at all, so I'm just going to use white because it's the same color as the little pouch. Now keep in mind that I'm very basic when it comes to sewing. I really only do it for things like this. It's not really a hobby that I commonly do. So you may know how to sew a lot better than me, and hopefully you can make this look really nice. Basically all I'm gonna do is just keep threading it back and forth until I get all the way across that edge so that that entire bottom part is completely sealed back in and onto the Furby's fur. Now it's hard to see, but there's actually a little ridge there where I'm going to be threading in and out of, and if you thread into that ridge, it kind of comes out a little bit from the fur so that you're not actually directly putting that thread into the fur, so it's not going to be coming out on the other side. You definitely don't want to see this thread on the other side. It's meant to be completely hidden. Also, when I cut across this pouch, it opened up the bottom of the pouch so that there's some stuffing in there, and so as I'm threading, I'm also going to be sealing that up as best as I can. That way no stuffing is going to be able to come out. Once I get to the end, I just start tying it off by knotting it over and over, and then I will clip off the excess thread. This pouch was also attached on the top by 2 tabs. One of them is right here, so I'm just going to try to reattach this back the way that it was. There's still a little bit of white material on the fur where this pouch was connected, and so I'm going to be threading through that white part just to reconnect these 2 parts together. When one side is done, move on to the next side and do the exact same thing and then tie it off again. It's time to reattach the pouch that was in the back. This is the pouch that doesn't have any wiring on the inside. So I'm just going to do the same thing I did with the first pouch, and I'm going to attach it the exact same way that it was originally attached on there. When attaching this pouch, I'm very careful not to go too deep when I'm putting this through. I'm just trying to go through that very thin layer on the inside of the Furby's skin because I don't want this to show through the other side. Needless to say, my needle is not actually going through the other side of the Furby's skin. If you can feel that the needle is going through on the other side, then you're going too deep and your thread is going to end up showing. I'm trying to center these pouches as best as I can, just the way that they were. That way the weight of the Furby and where the stuffing is supposed to be is distributed properly, so the Furby looks exactly the way that it once did. It's time to put the Furby back together. You're now going to reattach all these little plastic clamps back onto the faceplate. You may have a few clasps that got a little worn out and stretched when you were taking them off the faceplate. Unfortunately, the plastic that was used to make them is quite stretchy, so that's pretty typical to happen. These top clasps were stretched the most on my Furby, so you may need a tool to kind of help push that plastic back under there. Just do your best to wedge it in there until it's secure. Once all the clasps have now been attached, you can start trying to flip the Furby back around so that it's no longer inside out. The hardest part for me is to stretch it to get these ears back in. Once you get the ears in, the rest of the Furby should come together. The ears are pretty tight in there and there's no way that they're going to be moving around, so there's no point in trying to reattach them to the fur like they were earlier. I find sewing them back to the Furby's fur kind of pointless. You're really going to have to stretch this fur to get the last ear in there. Don't be afraid to bend the ears a little bit, as long as you're really careful not to create any creases in them or anything that could bend them permanently, you should be fine. They're made out of a quite durable and bendable plastic. You'll now need to reattach the ribbon that moves the tail. Take the portion of the ribbon that's attached to the battery compartment and feed it through the loop that's on the fur. Then you're going to pull it back the opposite direction and place it into the hook. Once you've got it on there, you can kind of pull it towards you a little bit to make sure that it goes under that hook properly and that it's going to stay there. Now you can take this plate that's holding the fur in place and screw it back in. Don't move the fur out of the way as you screw this in, just leave it where it is so that the screws go through the fur. That will keep the fur in place at the base. And after that, you're finished. So now you can add some batteries in and then put the battery cover back on and you're all done. And now she's off and back to sleep. I hope you enjoyed this Furby Boom tutorial, and if there's any other tutorials you'd like to see, go ahead and let me know in the comments. And my channel ReFURBi is all about Furby related videos, so if you want to see more like this, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Thanks for watching!